So for the last 2 weeks, everyone's been asking me, what did you think about the new movie? What did you think about the new movie? And I have to say, it was good. I don't know about the science of it. You know, what is the exact origin of Kenergy? Is that a 0-point energy and Barbie's the strong force and Ken is the... What? Oh. Oh yeah, the other movie. Yeah. So my Oppenheimer trailer reaction video is the most popular thing I've done, and a lot of people have been asking me what I thought of the actual movie. I put up a short review the night that I watched it. I wasn't able to do a long video because my cheap lighting system broke. I have a slightly less cheap lighting system now, and I'm hoping to experiment with a little bit so I get good lighting but don't look like I'm about to have a heart attack. So we'll still be a work in progress. But it actually turned out to be a blessing in disguise, because Oppenheimer is the kind of movie that benefits from being thought about, from sleeping on, from taking some time and reading up a little bit. And so I'm not prepared to do like my full review. This review will be divided into 2 sections. First, I'll review the movie just as a movie, as entertainment, and then I'll talk a little bit about the science at the end. Probably not in depth because I don't have the movie in streaming or on DVD in front of me, so I can't get into the little niggly details, but maybe we'll do another video about this down the road. As a movie, I thought this was just outstanding. Probably one of the best things Chris Nolan has done. I'm a big fan of his work. I would probably say the weakest one he did was Tenet, and Tenet was still pretty good. And the best thing he's done was probably be a toss-up between Inception and The Dark Knight. But this is in a very good movie. For a 3-hour biopic, it doesn't drag. It moves along pretty good. I really like the way they structure it. The way this is told is a story within a story within a story. You're telling the story of the development of the first atomic bomb within the framing of the hearing on Oppenheimer's security clearance that happened during the Red Scare. And then that is told within the context of Lewis Strauss's congressional hearings for his cabinet position, which turned on what had happened in that security hearing. And I think that the way that tells the story and the way the lines play in between the different stories, the connections between them, and especially the last scene, which sort of ties everything together, works extremely well. I really like that this was not a hagiography or a hit job. It was a portrayal of a complicated and complex man, and showed his good sides and his bad sides, and leaves really the audience to judge what you think about him and his life. The acting is just amazing. I mean, Chris Nolan is an actor's director, and people seem to love working for the guy, and he just assembles these amazing casts, and this is probably the best cast he has ever assembled. As we thought going in, Cillian Murphy does a career-defining performance. This is a performance that people remember with, say, Jamie Foxx in Ray, or Marlon Brando in The Godfather, or Robert De Niro in Raging Bull. He just dominates the movie. He's on screen for large parts of the movie and just disappears into the role and just is absolutely captivating the whole time. But the supporting cast is amazing too. You have people like Robert Downey Jr. and Josh Hartnett in these supporting roles. These guys would be headlining most movies, and they're in these little supporting roles, and all of them kill it. Robert Downey Jr. is outstanding. He should be up for Best Supporting Actor, I think, this year. There were only a couple of women in this movie, but both of them were outstanding. Florence Pugh is defining herself as a really amazing actress, and even though it was a relatively small part, was very good. Emily Blunt, of course, is well established, and in the one scene where she gets to really show her chops, she just sizzles. It's amazing. So just great acting all around. Movies are a collaboration, and great writing, great directing, and great acting all elevate each other and make the movie an even better experience. One of the things I look for in a good movie is if I know what's going to happen, but I'm still on the edge of my seat, that's a sign of a good movie. For example, The Lord of the Rings. I'd read The Lord of the Rings a dozen times. And when I was sitting there in the theater watching Return of the King, I was on the edge of my seat during the Battle of the Pelennor Fields. And I thought to myself, why are you so tensed up? You've read this book 10 times. You know exactly what's going to happen. But the movie was so well made and carried you away so well that it just was a thrill. Apollo 13 is probably a really good comparison because it's also based on history. And during Apollo 13, when I saw it, I was on the edge of my seat, and I just would say to myself, you idiot, you know I got home safely. Why are you so tensed up? But the movie was just so well made, so well acted, committed to it so well, you just bought into it. The climax of this movie is clearly the Trinity Test of the atomic bomb. And spoiler warning, the atomic bomb worked. But it's so well done. That scene is just absolutely outstanding. There are just so many little touches in that scene that are so well done. Probably one of my favorites is, and this is accurate, they show Richard Feynman sitting in his car watching the explosion from his windshield, which would shield him from the ultraviolet light, instead of lying down on the ground or viewing it through glasses. Feynman, who was an interesting character in his own right, would later joke that he was probably the only human who witnessed the blast. You have this tremendous light from the explosion, and then there's this delay because they're thousands of feet away for the sound to come and hit them. And so it's just a really wonderfully done scene, and really, I think, captures what the scientists must have felt at that moment, both the elation that they had achieved this and the gravity of what they had done and what they had unleashed upon the world. This isn't just a good movie, it's a very important movie. It deals with really important topics like the development of the atomic bomb and the choice to use the atomic bomb. And the Red Scare, which wasn't just about Joe McCarthy, it was many years worth of persecution. The one complaint I would have about the movie is that the sound mix was very heavy. Ludwig Göransson's score is quite good, but it's really loud in a lot of parts. And Nolan has a tendency to prefer these very heavy mixes. And I do know some people who did not like the movie because of that. It can depend a little bit on your theater. I was able to hear the dialogue just fine in my theater. I know some people who said they could not hear it in their theaters because of the sound mix. And I am looking forward to it coming out on DVD so I can maybe turn it down a little bit and have it be more to the sound balance I prefer. This is actually a problem that Nolan has had for a while with having this bomb sound in his movies. And it didn't really detract from the movie for me, but I know for a lot of people it was a real problem. One of the fun things to come out of this was the Barbenheimer phenomenon. Earlier this year, when it was announced that Barbie and Oppenheimer would be released on the same weekend, a lot of people joked about it. Why are you releasing these two tentpole movies on the same weekend? And people say, well, people who like to see Barbie aren't going to see Oppenheimer. And then other people said, hey, I want to see both. And I have not seen the Barbie movie actually, but I probably will see it eventually. My daughter really wants to see it. And I do know people, brave souls, who watch both of them. I can't sit in a chair that long, but and they enjoyed both of them. But I loved what this built, this anticipation of these two movies, which are very, very different, even though they're both made by very talented filmmakers and have as their star very talented actors. But I tell you what, when I went to the Cineplex last weekend, I have not seen it that busy since maybe The Force Awakens hit. It was packed. It was assigned seating in my theater, and just everyone, it was just full of people. It's the first time since the pandemic began that I really felt movies were back. Both movies made immense amounts of money. Both movies were a hit with audiences and with critics. And I really hope Hollywood looks at this and thinks, hey, maybe instead of making cookie cutter franchise movies all the time, we can do cool stuff, a silly doll movie and a really heavy biopic, and people will like both. And so I hope they don't just look at this and say we should imitate what was done, but look at this and say that original, interesting, groundbreaking entertainment is going to draw audiences and critics and money. Now, as to the science, I didn't notice anything dramatically that they got wrong. The explanation of how the bombs worked was very well done and accurate. There were two mechanisms that were used. One was the bullet mechanism, where you had this sphere of uranium and shot a uranium bullet into it, and then that achieved the critical mass. That was the bomb that was used on Hiroshima. The other was the implosion, which is what you see in the trailers, and what was the Trinity Test, where you had this massive amount of explosives that compressed a plutonium ball down until it achieved critical mass and exploded. That was used in the Trinity Test and in Nagasaki. So really well explained and really accurate. There were a few little details. Nolan has a tendency to learn the history and then bend it at his leisure for storytelling purposes. One of the scenes that's a little inaccurate is you see them after the Trinity Test carting away the bombs in a truck, and it's a very ominous moment. That didn't happen. The bombs would have been in pieces. They were transported by ship. You may have heard about one of those ships if you've seen the movie Jaws, and then assembled on the island and dropped on Japan. So inaccurate, but done for storytelling purposes. What was really exciting to me, especially in the first part of the movie, was seeing this era when physics was transforming. Between the beginning of the 20th century and the dropping of the atomic bomb, our view of the universe changed dramatically. New discoveries about the atom and quantum mechanics were seemingly being made every week. There is a picture I am very fond of from the 1927 Solvay conference, where you see a group of scientists put together. Of the 29 people in that picture, 17 had either won the Nobel Prize or would go on to win the Nobel Prize. And one of them, Marie Curie, was one of the only people in history to win 2. You will rarely see such a collection of genius and such a collection of pioneers who transformed the world that they lived in. The Trinity Test and the development of the atomic bomb wasn't just this weapons program, it was the culmination of our understanding of quantum mechanics, eventually visited into the real world with this unimaginable power. Another thing that shows up in the movie is Oppenheimer's prediction of the existence of black holes. He predicted that neutron stars would not be able to hold themselves up eventually and would collapse and form a singularity. This is accurate. This was Oppenheimer's paper, released on the same day as Germany invaded Poland. If you go to Dr. Becky Smethurst's channel, she has a really nice short video describing how that paper came about, what it was built on, and what it eventually meant. The one inaccuracy they have is they were not called black holes until the 1970s. They would have been called singularities. Another instance where I think Christopher Nolan decided to bend the truth for artistic purposes. Another little scene I noticed, there was a brief scene where they talked about their concerns of how the radiation would affect the women who are working on the project and their ability to have children. This actually was a real concern that was expressed, and several women were pulled off the project and moved elsewhere so they wouldn't be exposed to radiation. After we watched this, my daughter joked that maybe we should have a genius cinematic universe where we do movies about Planck and Curie and Einstein and so forth. We've actually already gotten the first 2 installations of that in The Theory of Everything and The Imitation Game. So hey, if you're going to make more movies about scientists, I'd love to see them, especially if they're this well done. This is definitely going to be in contention for Oscars. I don't see how Cillian Murphy doesn't win all the awards at the end of the year. And I think this may be Nolan's chance to break in on a director or Best Picture nom. There are a lot of good movies yet to come out. This is shaping up to be a really good year for movies. Killers of the Flower Moon in particular is one I'm looking forward to this year. This is just a great movie and experience, and I'm really glad to see it did not disappoint, and really I think was worthy of the intensely interesting and complicated man that was at the center of it, and the amazing program that was the Manhattan Project and what it was able to accomplish in such a short period of time. If this is popular, maybe I'll do some more real-time movie reviews after I see them in the theater. Be sure to hit that subscribe and like button and tell all your friends about this channel. But until we meet again, I'm Mike Siegel. I write for Ordinary Times. Thank you for watching.